Hi friends, I want to talk today about your least favorite uncle and his really bad habit. What I mean is Uncle Sam and his bad spending habit. Let's talk for a moment about something that gets a lot of attention, but that's pretty vague, and that's the national debt. So, many of you know there's a running clock, debt clock, that you can go and see in real time what the national debt is. At the end of 2019, the national debt was $22.7 trillion, which is hard to even say, much less process. Today, as we shoot this video, the debt is well above $25 trillion. So nearly a $3 trillion hike in 5 months. And there's reasons for that, which we'll touch on briefly. But first, I don't want to assume that we all have the same operational understanding of how the national debt works. So at a basic level, the Congress is both the spender and the creditor. What I mean is, think about your credit card. So you have a credit card with Discover, and they give you a $10,000 limit. Well, you're the spender and they're the creditor. They decide when and if you get to raise your credit limit. Well, Congress is both for themselves. So when Congress decides that we've spent too much money based off of the debt ceiling, they then go give themselves more permission to write and issue more debt and spend more money. So you see the embedded problem in there, but that's for another conversation, probably over some cocktails. But regardless, the national debt has both intergovernmental debt, or debt it owes to itself, to its other agencies, and external debt. So it owes itself money and it owes private institutions, domestic investors, and international investors debt as well. So it's broken into two parts. But the basic flow of things is that the Treasury Department receives an order or a permission from Congress to issue more debt. And so what's happened as a case in point is this year, when the House and Senate passed the CARES Act 2020, which we did a 6-part video series on, it was a $2.2 trillion check that they didn't have the spending limit or in the bank account to write, so they issued debt for it. Right? They borrowed from themselves that will be paid back at some future date, which again is a whole separate conversation. But that $2.2 trillion spending bill is actually really worth about $6 trillion. When you factor in all the grants and forgivable loans and other goodies that were put into there, it's nearly a $6 trillion package. Think about what that means. That means that we would presumably take our debt from just under 23 trillion to almost $30 trillion. Now, some of you are under the assumption that this alone will wreck the economy, but here's what's important to put it in the right framework. Debt relative to income is always what needs to be looked at. So somebody with $10,000 in debt and somebody with $11,000 in debt, if they have the same income, then it's the same conversation. But if they have much different incomes, then it's a different income conversation. So we look at debt to GDP ratio. Based off of how much income the United States has, what's its debt number? So in a typical year, what you want to see is low single digit debt to GDP ratio, meaning debt makes up 2 or 3 or 4% of our overall income, right? So if we had X number of dollars to spend, 2 to 3% of it would be for debt service. Well, in the Great Recession in 08 and 09, it got up to nearly 10%. So nearly 10% of our budget, our income, was assigned to debt service. And the highest it's ever been is just under 20% at the end of World War II. Well, we stopped making planes, stopped shipping young men overseas, stopped the production of ships, and that number quickly fell. The estimates for this year is that our national debt again will either rival or exceed the World War II numbers of nearly 20%. Now, this alone feels like it's going to sink the proverbial ship, but here's why it won't, at least not right now. The average debt at the end of last year, meaning what the government owed itself, was at just over 2.5%. That was the interest rate, or what they were required to pay on an annual basis. Because interest rates have fallen so significantly, today the average debt is just over 0.5%. So basically, the US government has used 0% interest credit cards to finance this debt out for some point in the future. Now, there is a day coming where that will need to be rectified, but fortunately or unfortunately, because the debt service is so low and our income is so high, it's not something in the immediate future. Stay tuned for our video next time, which we're going to dive into the Federal Reserve. You don't want to miss this.